You are not allowed to disagree with the government. And if you do, we will send you straight to jail. Welcome to the United Kingdom.
So in just 6 weeks, the UK under this socialist Labour government and its authoritarian leader Two Tier Keir Starmer is not only locking up working class Brits for dodgy posts on Facebook and X, but bidding to criminalise free speech in a host of terrifying ways. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, who has no concerns about throwing open the UK borders to illegals including rapists, murderers and terrorists, is planning to reclass extreme misogyny as terrorism, a law designed to lock up Andrew Tate and his followers. Home Office Minister Jess Phillips, the woman who excused violent Muslim protests just 2 weeks ago, clearly finds it so much easier to talk about misogyny than Islamist extremism.
Extreme misogyny is the phrase that's being used in most of the Sunday papers this morning. How would the government go about defining what is extreme misogyny as compared, I suppose, to more day-to-day misogyny? Morning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not keen on any misogyny, if I'm perfectly honest, but this is about looking at exactly what those definitions are and doing a piece of work to fill gaps that have been growing for a very long time. And lots of agencies, you cited Maggie Blythe and the NPCC, the National Police Chiefs Council, concerns there about the growing rise in sort of misogynistic attitudes amongst young men, largely because of online content that they're seeing. And this isn't, let me just be completely clear, about criminalising people who are showing signs of an ideology. It is about preventing that ideology.
It's so much easier, isn't it, for Labour to talk about homegrown incels and Andrew Tate, who alongside Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson seems to have become the most predictable villain of the left. And it's so much easier for them to talk about those folk than Islamist extremists who are raping and killing British women on a regular basis. So I think this is Labour now deliberately attempting to silence their enemies through fear. The fear of losing their liberty. And this is a very real fear. Look at the message that the brave and regularly persecuted women's rights campaigner Kelly J. Keane sent to her followers today. Dear ladies in WhatsApp and Signal chats, LWS, that's Let Women Speak, closed all of ours as they are neither secure or fruitful. Women are being arrested and having their phones seized. I would recommend you take all steps to protect yourselves and your friends. We are living in strange times with a leftist Stasi government. Prepare to be persecuted. Can you believe that? A women's rights group going underground in fear of persecution in the UK in 2024. But sadly, I think Kelly is right. I mean, think about this. She believes in biological sex, and we know that Starmer and his Labour stooges don't. So it's possible that someone who doesn't accept a trans woman is a she could soon be accused of criminal behaviour or even terrorism under this banner of extreme misogyny. Now, I know this is nuts, you know this is nuts, but it's happening, and we need to speak out. Last week, I told you about some of the cases that should have rocked this country, the home of the Magna Carta, to its core. Like Julie Sweeney, the 53-year-old from Kidsgrove, who lived a quiet, sheltered life in Cheshire and is the primary caregiver to her ill husband, now serving 15 months behind bars after she made an inappropriate post on Facebook that she instantly regretted. There's David Spring, the retired 61-year-old former train driver from Sutton who has never been in trouble with the law, now behind bars for confronting the police at a protest outside Downing Street, even though footage shows that he did absolutely nothing violent. What about Lucy Connolly, the wife of a Conservative politician who remains locked up on remand because of her social media posts? That's an indignity usually reserved for violent criminals. Or Sellafield worker Lee Joseph Dunn, serving 12 weeks for sharing 3 memes Yep, that's right. He shared 3 political memes. No wonder we are now a disgrace in the free world. And the wonderful Dutch activist Eva Vlaardingerbroek said the day David Spring got sentenced to 18 months in jail was the day UK citizens lost their freedom. Watch.
The two-tier Keir justice system. The UK is no longer a free nation. If you do not have democratic options to express your disagreement with the government, that country is no longer a democracy. And that's the only conclusion that I can come to in all of these cases. A mother of 5 being sent to 26 months in jail because she threw a can at the police. Is that proportionate? A man online who committed the crime of according to the government, inciting racial hatred because he posted one post on Facebook? Is that proportionate? I don't think so. I don't think so. But it's very clear, like I said, what the message is here. You are not allowed to disagree with the government. And if you do, we will send you straight to jail. Welcome to the United Kingdom.
Lord Frost agrees with Eva that the UK is no longer a free country. And my friend, the broadcaster and journalist Colin Brazier posted, "There's an air of unreality to prosecutions designed to nip unrest in the bud by handing down disproportionate sentences. English law, honed over centuries to match punishment to evidence, is misfiring. Many defendants have pled guilty without trial. Cases need testing by juries." And of course he's right. I mean, how could this monster, an Islamic teacher who molested an 11-year-old girl, escape jail because his wife doesn't speak English when Julie, David, Lee and Lucy are locked up? This is the definition of two-tier justice. And I fear it's about to get so much worse. But now it's time to bring in today's superstar panel. And I'm delighted to be joined today by the Conservative commentator Alex Armstrong, and making her Outspoken debut, but a very good friend of mine, former Deputy Chair of the UKIP party and the author Suzanne Evans. It is so great to have both of you here today. Suzanne, given you are
great to be here.
Woman, great to have you, great to see you again. And given you are a woman, I guess it probably makes sense to come to you first. Otherwise, they may be accused
We're not supposed to know
of
this
extreme misogyny and locked up. Well, I think you probably are too. But honestly, how crazy is this going to get?
I think we've seen in the last 6 weeks since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister a huge amount that is deeply, deeply worrying. How many migrants is it in small boats who have come across since he became PM? It's heading for 6,500. He scrapped the Rwanda plan. I never thought it was very good, to be honest. But there you go. It's removed the one deterrent that was in existence with no plan to replace it. The riots that we've had, I think Keir Starmer has inflamed them by refusing, as he did when we had those Black Lives Matter protests. Remember, he immediately got down on one knee. But it seems that when white people riot, and I'm absolutely not supporting the riots, I think they're absolutely categorically wrong. There is no excuse for it. The fact is there are grievances that underlie those riots that we must talk about. Yet Keir Starmer's done quite the opposite. And suddenly he's managed to find prison places and a fast-track justice system to get these people arrested, prosecuted, convicted, whereas that has never happened before with numerous other widespread crimes that we've seen. I mean, knife crime among gangs in London being the obvious example that springs to mind. You know, we seem to be able to crack down on certain so-called right-wing extremism. But when it comes to any other kind of extremism, any other kind of crime, let's have a softly approach. Maybe we best not go there. And I find it deeply worrying. I think we have all for a very long time been almost self-censoring what we say in the public sphere, rightly up to a point, definitely wrongly up to another. And I think that is going to get worse. I think free speech is absolutely in peril. And I think it is particularly in peril under this current government, although to be fair, the last government didn't do a very good job on protecting it either.
Alex Armstrong, what do you make of Kelly J. Key telling her women to be really careful, to close down these WhatsApp and Signal groups, warning that they are being persecuted? And what the irony is about this, Alex, is they are obviously women, but they are women who believe in biological sex. They are folk that people try and class as TERFs, although we have now reclaimed that term and said that's a great thing, trans-exclusionary radical feminists. But how disturbing that women like that could find themselves classed as terrorists under this plan by Labour to criminalise extreme misogyny.
It's terrifying. And I think so many people are so scared of using their voice to say what they believe, which is an utterly insane statement to be making in 2024. It was only 80 or so years ago that our men and women bravely fought Nazism across Europe to ensure our societies were free to speak and to use their voices in such a way that we can have a political discussion. But what's so funny about all of this is that you've got people like Yvette Cooper coming out saying they want, and Jess Phillips saying they want to, they hate misogyny. This is a form of misogyny. It's a misogyny of minority people who believe in this radical trans agenda against biological women like J.K. Rowling, who has been forever a feminist. And the crackdown on free speech we've seen from this two-tier tyrannical Keir, that's my new name for him, over the last 6-7 weeks since he's been in office is unprecedented. I know so many people who are even considering leaving the United Kingdom just to be able to go, from fear of being arrested for sharing things like memes. I mean, anyone who follows me knows I love putting out a meme. I love it. I love making a Keir Starlin meme. And, if I get arrested for that, so be it. I'd rather be arrested for using my freedom of speech. But I find this so abhorrent, and is normal, as usual for Labour. They're trying to solve a symptom of a problem that they have perpetuated alongside the Tories, just might I add, over the last 10 years by locking people up and suppressing their voice rather than having a debate with them. We even had Tony Blair, not that long ago, make a very long video, a big interview, saying we should listen to people. We even had the Chancellor, when she was Shadow Chancellor, saying that if we didn't speak about immigration and issues that affect the majority of Brits, there would be rioting on the streets. I think you're going to see, and again, I don't condone the rioting whatsoever. The same as Suzanne, I think it's abhorrent what's happened. But you'll start to find that the masses will start to come together under one unified banner over the next few years, because I think we're heading to some very tough times.
Two-tier tyrannical Keir. I like that a lot. But look, the point is, Suzanne, a lot of the people who are being locked up actually had nothing to do with the riots. Like Lee, he posted 3 memes, actually not that different to the types of memes that Alex posts, as he points out. Others made inappropriate comments on Facebook, but they were not directly inciting violence. So actually, I feel like what they're trying to do is terrify people much, much more in terms of what they say rather than what they do.
Yeah, I agree. We're talking almost about thought crimes here, aren't we? And we all have thoughts of the wicked that flit through our head that we, regret at the instant we've thought them. And I think in this particular cases, we've seen people who have put things out there in the heat of the moment, instantly regretted it, deleted it, but they're still being prosecuted. And this is what I find particularly worrying, because we all make mistakes. Now, as I kind of hinted earlier, I think there is a very worrying tendency on social media to be a keyboard warrior, to say things out there that are nasty and abusive without really thinking it through. And frankly, none of us should do that, let's be honest. But when we do make mistakes, when we are human in that way, and then you suddenly find 3 or 4 policemen knocking on your door in the early hours of the morning and dragging you out of your bed, it is very, very worrying. And the sentences that are being given out as well. You know, you mentioned, didn't you, Dan, in your introduction, the 53-year-old Julie Sweeney, who did say some pretty ghastly things on social media, but did regret it. You know, she was jailed for what, 15 months?
Yes.
And then
and
you
she's
look
the
at
full-time carer for her
Absolutely.
husband. Suzanne, she has never, ever been in trouble with the law. And you say she said a few things. It was one post.
It was one
and
thing.
it was a gross post. She immediately regretted it, and they both tried to delete it after 1 minute. This was on a community Facebook page with 5,000 people. It didn't directly incite someone to burn down a particular mosque. Not excusing the comment at all, but I'm sorry, Suzanne, when she ends up in prison and the Muslim guy who gropes the 11-year-old girl doesn't because his wife fails to speak English, then how can you say that we have anything other than a two-tier justice system?
No, I absolutely think we do. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, the same judge in her case gave a 2-year sentence to a man who abused his partner badly over the course of about 3 weeks. He also let a paedophile who'd collected graphic images of children online for 4 years get off scot-free.
Yes.
So, yes,
the same
absolutely,
judge.
a two-tier
The
justice
same
system.
judge.
And you can
So
see
what's
it
happened,
with the
Suzanne,
sentencing
then?
of different judges.
Are they taking to heart what Starmer has said? And doesn't that go fundamentally against the principles of a Westminster system where the executive is meant to be separate from the judiciary?
Yes, absolutely it does. But I'm afraid many of our judges, in my opinion, have been quite politicised, highly politicised for quite some time. We saw that front and centre in the aftermath of the EU referendum, when we saw even the Supreme Court trying to stop Brexit. Deeply worrying. It's got to be stopped. But of course, we now have a Labour government whose perhaps ideology is more in tune with those politically compromised judges. So I don't see anything being done about it anytime soon, unfortunately.
Yeah, and might I add, on top of it being a Labour government, we also have their chief lawyer, the man who ran the Crown Prosecution Service, as he never lets us forget, as Prime Minister. So he knows how to weaponize the law. If anyone does, he's the man that's going to do it. I just briefly wanted to touch on this misogyny thing again, briefly, because I believe it's people on the left that have radicalized these young boys. They have demasculated them. They have said that they can't be men, essentially. They're saying that being a man is bad. You must conform to feminism or you're evil. And it's what people like Andrew Tate would never exist if the traditional left was still in power and said, actually, you know, we need to have a sensible debate with men about how we resolve XYZ issues together. But instead, what they're doing is what they've been doing for the last 14 years, which is creating these massive protest groups to take down anyone that disagrees with them in radical ways. You weaponizing the law. It's so funny, the amount of people I've had in my Twitter comments saying, you're going to need a lawyer, someone's going to sue you. I'm like, go for it. But over 14 years of Tory rule, that never happened once. They are hungry for people to be locked up in this country, and only for the vast majority of people who have common sense views, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, Suzanne, what do you make of the whole Andrew Tate thing? Because for me, I believe this is a law that is designed specifically to try and criminalize Andrew Tate, to say that Andrew Tate is a terrorist. Now, surely Alex is right, actually, that Andrew Tate has only become as successful as he has because there's such an issue with masculinity being dumped upon in society.
Yeah, I'm not quite so sure about that, to be honest. I think there's absolutely been an issue with men being emasculated in society, about men being told that their masculinity is toxic, when in fact it isn't, and in fact in many circumstances can be extremely helpful. Andrew Tate, I think whether or not that would happen would probably have made some of the... I don't think Andrew Tate is a man who respects women. I certainly don't have any respect for him. But I think you're right. He's not a terrorist. That's absolutely true. To call him a terrorist is ridiculous. He's a nasty misogynist, but he's not a terrorist. And misogyny is not terrorism. I feel we were almost at a situation where so much is being labelled terrorist, except real terrorism that we see day in, day out. we hear a story about, as happened last week, a soldier being stabbed on the street. But it's not terrorism. It's someone who's got a mental health problem.
Mental health.
One man that makes some derogatory comments about women is suddenly a terrorist, and we've got to make sure he's locked away for life. It is insane. As I say, I don't like Andrew Tate, but this is insane. And I think you're right, Dan. I think it is a law that's being brought in to go after people like him. He is an extreme case, and extreme cases make very bad law. And this is one that shouldn't happen.
You can see a situation where that law, however it's written, and I'm sure it'll be written so broadly that they will be able to pull other people into it. So anyone who shares a slightly misogynistic tweet, or I got accused of misogyny because I did write a really silly tweet attacking Angela Rayner, and I did apologize for it. But I can see a law like that being weaponized against someone like me who was actually trying to make a point about. No, well, exactly.
Would Lawrence Fox have been arrested for saying that he didn't want to shag Eva Santina? Is that extreme misogyny? Because remember, I was called a misogynist for laughing and saying that she was beautiful.
Exactly. So my fear is, after seeing what they've done just in the last few weeks, is that they're going to make, and this Islamophobia law is going to be coming in soon as well. This is all going to happen at the same time. At the same time, they've got rid of the free speech bill at universities. So we're seeing where this government's going, very early days. My worry is that they're going to weaponize it, and they're going to take down anyone that disagrees with them.
Well, they
and
are.
The blob will be in power forever, some sort of Labour dictat that never ends.
Yeah, it's also going to make life, I think, very dull and very frightening. I'm sure I've probably laughed at some good sexist jokes in my time. I mean, when I was growing up as a young girl in the 60s and 70s, that was pretty much.
You must have heard a few blonde jokes, Suzanne.
Out. But the fact is, some things in life are funny. They might be broadly sexist, but they're still quite funny because they're true. I think it also makes for a very humorless, joyless society, which I think that's also what they want.
Well, this is
to be honest, I don't think they want anyone to
tyranny.
enjoy themselves. They don't want any of us to have any money. They don't want any of us to own our own property. They don't want any of us to have, a successful, independent family life. Even our children now are pursued every minute of every day by some kind of state intervention. It is a deeply worrying direction of travel.
It is. Woke tyranny.
You'll own nothing, and you will be happy about it.
That's
Suzanne.
right. Yeah.
Yes.
That's it. World Economic.
But isn't this World Economic Forum stuff?
World
Absolutely.
Economic Council.
But isn't this also, Suzanne, all about diversion? And actually, it's diversion from talking about the real issue here. And the real issue is extreme Islam. We know that when you look at all of the statistics on terrorism and the Prevent program, actually, it's not incels that are causing the issue. On the whole, it is extreme Islam. And yet again, it feels like, just like there was a diversion after Southport in terms of not speaking about the perils of mass immigration, yet again, it feels like Labour is doing anything to divert the conversation away from talking about the perils of extreme Islam. But first, I've promised to only talk to you about products on this show that are actually life-changing. This one's a little bit more personal, but the fellas watching, you will completely get it. And ladies, like Suzanne, would do very well to treat their husband or boyfriend, because this really is a game changer. Us men want our grooming routine to be a one-and-done deal. So the days of using the same trimmer for your face and your nether regions are over, and this is thanks to our brilliant friends at Manscaped. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep your hairs trimmed from 12 till 6. Introducing the Beard and Balls bundle, featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger. And I'm not talking about this sort of lawnmower, folks, but this product does provide precision trimming for all areas, even the sensitive ones, to get him as manicured as freshly cut grass. So I'm talking about a trimmer for the moneymaker, another for the boys downstairs, a trimmer that gets it right the first time while being gentle on the skin where it matters. With 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads, you can choose between a precise trim or a smooth finish, and it's waterproof too, which means you can use it in the shower without making a mess. That is really good news. Next, let me tell you about the Beard Hedger. Whether you're going for a neat stubble or a full-on beard, it has you completely covered. It features a titanium-coated stainless steel T-blade, 20 length options, so you just twist the zoom wheel to get the exact look look you're going for. The beard hedger is also waterproof, so you can handle your beard grooming right in the sink or shower without worrying about water damage. Has 60 minutes of runtime, an LED charge indicator too, so you'll never be caught with low battery. This is such a gentle product, folks, so I can guarantee no more cuts. You'll keep your loved one happy, and this product will increase your confidence. The great news is today you will get 20% off and totally free shipping. You just have to use the code Outspoken at www.manscaped.com. I'll put the link in our YouTube and Rumble description. But to repeat, that's 20% off and free shipping with the code Outspoken at manscaped.com. No more juggling multiple tools or dealing with subpar results, just efficient, effective grooming wherever you need it. For the premium grooming experience, trust Manscaped.
Yes, I certainly think that's the case. I mean, again, they don't want to go after their voter base, which is quite obvious. We saw Angela Rayner in that bizarre environment where she was begging for votes. I don't know where it was, but it was certainly looked like it was only Muslim men in the room.
No woman in sight apart from her.
No woman in sight. No woman in sight. And if we're talking about misogyny laws, I mean, it's parts of the Islamic religion, it order women to cover up. They have to ensure that men and women are separated. So you know, if we're going to do that, how does this all work? It's very confusing to me about how they're going to tackle this, and also talk about the issues within certain religions that do separate men and women quite dramatically, actually. But you're right, Dan. It's all a diversion. It's all in order to scare you as much as possible. I mean, they've wheeled out almost everyone, from a former counter-terrorism director who's one of the most woke people on the planet, to the director of the Crown Prosecution Service, to say to you, you will be locked up if you disagree with us, in so many words, or you will be deemed a terrorist, in so many words. So they're showing you their hand.
That's the terrifying thing. They
Yeah.
have done it. And the thing is, when it comes to Islamophobia, I'm sorry, this is a religion that doesn't want me as a gay man to exist. So I am going to talk about that, whether you like it or not. And if Labour wants to lock me up for that, then they can go ahead. And Suzanne, I'm sure as a woman, you have some pretty strong views about Islam and Sharia law being introduced through the back door, as it is in many parts of the UK.
Yes, I do. Absolutely. And what particularly worries me is that we already have this kind of refusal to debate these issues in the public sphere without fear. But I think we've also now got coming down the tracks this threat of an Islamophobia law to prevent people criticizing Islam. That's what this amounts to, I believe. I don't think any religion should be immune to criticism. Religion is something that you choose. You might be under pressure to choose it because of your upbringing or whatever it might be. But I think all religion should be open to criticism. If we get a situation where a blasphemy law is brought in by the back door, that means we cannot criticize Islam, then how are we to expose the problem of Islam's attitude, broader Islam's attitude to gay people, to women, to you know, the fact that Sharia law would potentially be something that is welcomed in Britain, with associated death penalty, floggings, amputations, and so on and so off at its extreme end.
Exactly. And we should be able to have that discussion. Now, look, I want to talk about the party political side of this for a second, because Alex, your party, Reform UK, doing a good job when the Conservatives have completely disappeared. I want to show you this post on X from the party's new chairman, Zia Youssef, who said Labour are now plotting a Ministry of Truth funded by the taxpayer. Reform is the last bastion for freedom and British values against this creeping totalitarian government. Lee Anderson also posted on X, spot the difference. I'll give you a clue. It starts with two-tier, and there you see on the left an article about Rolex watch thieves walking free. And by contrast, on the left, actually, the pensioner jailed for disorder there. Now, Suzanne, I know Alex is very much going to agree with that, but you are a former deputy chairman of UKIP. You previously worked with Nigel Farage. Do you think Reform UK are becoming the official opposition now? Or I guess you'd say the unofficial opposition, with the official opposition, the Tory party, missing in action?
I'd like to think so. I read the Reform Manifesto, and in some ways it was very similar to the UKIP one. In others, there was some new and innovative stuff in there as well. But I just thought this is what the Conservative Party should be, and what the Conservative Party no longer is. It was a brilliant manifesto. so much in it, and it's the only party, that was advertising free market economics, low taxes, a smaller state, cutting government spending, all this stuff, and it was amazing. And no other party is saying that. So if you are a small C Conservative, if you believe freedom, if you do believe in low taxes, if you don't think the government should be spending unnecessarily on, diversity, equality, inclusion measures, for example, that absolutely produce nothing, then reform is your only option. So yes, I wish reform in Parliament all the best. I hope they absolutely smash it. I hope they do become the official opposition, because my goodness, that's the kind of voice we need to hear.
And Alex, do you believe Farage will be Prime Minister in 2029?
I don't believe he'll be Prime Minister in 2029, no, but I do believe he will get to the Leader of the Opposition title. I mean, we just have to look at how many second place almost victories there were for reform in stronghold Labour seats. This is the Boris Johnson Tory party. This is where the Tories were in the 2019 election, when Boris got the Let's Get Brexit Done campaign. He got those working class people and he got them into the Conservative Party. And what the Tories failed to do was to recognise that the polls have shifted. Labour are the party of the rich. The Tories were meant to be the party for the working class, and they completely forgot that when they stabbed Boris and brought in Rishi. Now, Farage, Lee Anderson, Richard Tice, and I can't remember the last
Rupert Lowe, you've got.
Sorry, Rupert
James,
Lowe, thank you, James. Yeah, they are doing a fabulous job, and you can tell because the media are constantly out to get them. There is no press about the Tories other than their paid usual shills in the mainstream media. Push the Daily Mail still trying to push out Tory headlines about James Cleverly and Kemi Badenoch, the most boring Tory leadership election we probably had in history.
Well, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
They're irrelevant.
And who would have thought that someone like me, who supported the Tories under Boris Johnson and Liz Truss, would be saying this? But actually, look at the lineup. It's pathetic. And actually, it doesn't have Suella Braverman in. And I think Suella Braverman is the only person who could have spiced up this race and made it at all interesting, as far as I'm concerned. But look, back to the consequences of Labour's policies when it comes to the riots. And prison overcrowding is now so bad that in order to jail people like Julie Sweeney, violent criminals are going to be released on the streets. And this is Mark Fairhurst from the Prison Officers Association admitting on the BBC this morning that it is now 1 in, 1 out.
We will guarantee a prison cell. We will make sure that those people who need to be in prison will be in prison, not necessarily in the area where they live. They may be 200-300 miles away from home, but we will guarantee people a prison cell.
The numbers are so tight there. How can you make that guarantee?
They are tight, and that's why we've initiated Operation Early Dawn. So basically, the easiest way to describe it is 1 in, 1 out. So as people get released, we can then pick up people from police cells and take them to court, and we will triage that 3 times a day.
Okay, Suzanne, this is utterly insane. So Julie Sweeney, in order for her to go to prison for 15 months for sending a Facebook post which she quickly regretted, what, a rapist or a thief or an abuser is going to be let out?
It's madness. If you do the crime, you should do the time. You shouldn't rely on somebody else who's committed a potentially less serious crime than you to get you out, get out a jail-free card. I'm absolutely appalled by this. The correct response to this, if you really want to put more people in jail for right or wrong reasons, is to build more prisons. It's not to let out other offenders who've not yet paid their debt to society. I find it actually hard to believe that someone who calls themselves a prison minister can even make that statement.
Yeah, but this is the absolute confusion, Alex, with the Labour policy. Because Labour gets into government and it hires a prison minister who says, we believe in rehabilitation and we don't want to lock as many people up. Until the white working class folks start protesting, some violently, start posting things on Facebook and X, and actually then we want to get really tough. So their strategy is completely out of whack.
Yeah, we're seeing this party completely all over the place. Just got to look at how they've dealt with the union issue. I mean, they've got egg on their face. They were out celebrating the end of the protests and the picketing, and we're back to square one. And they've still given away billions of taxpayer pounds to do so. And that this Labour Party is unfit for government. It really, really is. Look at Keir Starmer's poll ratings. He's down to -7 within the first 7 weeks. It's shocking stuff. It's shocking. And the public are seeing through it so quickly. This government, we've got David Lammy, a foreign secretary who won't even have foreign leaders meet with him. He was trying to meet with Netanyahu and he refused to meet with him, quite rightly, in my opinion. And we've got a prime minister who is more interested in locking up British citizens than he is resolving the symptoms that have caused these problems in the first place. They are totally out of their depth. They've just taken away millions of pounds from taxpayers, pensioners who've paid in all their lives, who will freeze this winter, and they promised not to do that. And now they've again proven that they're liars. This is a government already in utter disarray. It's what took the Tories 14 years to get to. They've done it in 7 weeks. I cannot see Keir Starmer surviving as Prime Minister for more than a year at this rate. But it's a total distraction. I mean, if anything, all this chaos is the ultimate distraction from people questioning their tactics from what they've done with locking up rioters. The prisons are overcrowded. They always have been. Build more prisons. That's the answer. Don't let out violent people on the streets. The people they're locking up for memes have, as you said, Dan, and as Suzanne said, have never broken the law before. So what we're doing is putting less dangerous people in prison and letting the dangerous ones out. It's madness.
And Suzanne, can we pick up on what Alex was talking about there in terms of Starmer's immediate slump? His net approval rating, and this is truly extraordinary, down to -7%. But the crazy thing about that is that it's down 10 points from the beginning of August, but down 26 points from when he was elected Prime Minister. So down 26 points in 6 weeks, Suzanne.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember the Labour government through 1997 to 2010 and how dire it was, because I'm old enough. And you just knew that many people who were going to be voting Labour in this election have got no recollection of that, no experience of that. They don't know what a Labour government is like. Well, they've been dealt a very clear picture of just how bad a Labour government can be in just 6 weeks. So interestingly, I was talking to Andy Twelves, who's a trade union spokesperson, last week, and he was saying that he doesn't think Keir Starmer is going to go the distance and last the parliamentary term, which I thought was really surprising coming from a Labour man, because I must admit, despite the fact it is so bad, I think he probably will. But that was an interesting perspective. The difference, though, I think, is that while all three of us can see just how badly Labour is doing, I wonder if they realise just how badly they're doing.
No, I don't think they do.
I think they're probably patting themselves on the back, thinking, we stopped the riots by taking all these dangerous people off the streets and locking them up. I think they're thinking, we've got the civil service doing absolutely everything that we tell them to do, and they're coming up with even greater ideas of how to make life more uncomfortable for the British people. I think they are congratulating themselves on the fact that they are doing so well.
Well, because
and
the
that they've got such
mainstream
big
media
majority, so
love
they don't really
them.
have to worry too much about what people think anyway.
Yeah, and the mainstream media love them. So you're completely right. You add all of those factors together, but actually what the mainstream media and the Westminster bubble don't understand is actually the public are angrier than they have been in a generation. And the question is what to do. And I spoke about this quite a lot on the show last week, because obviously no one approves of the violent disorder, no one approves of the riots, but both Douglas Murray and Father Calvin Robinson have been advocating for folk to get back out on the streets, but do so peacefully. So that happened over the weekend. Watch this.
I can't have one more house. Refugees not welcome here anymore.
But see, I'm even wondering if in this new context, this new world order under Starmer with two-tier justice, if that's even risky, Suzanne. If you listen to some of the rhetoric that you could just hear there, refugees not welcome, could Labour and the police suggest that that's hate speech in some way and that that actually isn't a peaceful protest?
Well, I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, we are living in the most extraordinary parallel universe when even a national country's flag is believed by many people to be racist. So the very fact that we saw protesters there brandishing England flags could potentially be seen as an act of racist rebellion. I wouldn't put anybody past this. We are truly living through Animal Farm 1984 days at the moment. You know, George Orwell, better than any astrologer or mystic, he absolutely nailed it and predicted it with alarming accuracy. It is terrifying. There's no doubt that the crackdown on free speech is real. There's no doubt that the crackdown on centre-right thinking is real. There's no doubt that the crackdown on people who speak out against illegal migrants coming in boats day by day or committing crimes is real. Nobody quite knows where this will end up, but if we don't stand against it, it will not end in a good place.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it, Alex? If we all submit, if the solution is submission, then actually Starmer has won by cracking down on free speech.
Yes, and he'd certainly love to win. They've been doing it now. They're trying to scare you into shutting up. You know, they really are. They're doing everything they can to do that. Now, I mean, I couldn't agree more. We do need to, with Father Robinson and Douglas Murray, the silent majority has been silent for too long, and I've been saying this for a very long time. And you go to most towns, you get outside the London bubble for 10 minutes, go to most towns. I believe that footage was from Bournemouth actually, and my family don't live too far from there. Bournemouth has changed unrecognisably over the last decade.
Yep.
And you know what, the stabbing on the beach, the lady that was stabbed on the beach, that wasn't that long ago, and people are getting fed up all over the country. And let's not forget, on top of all, I mean, I'm sure they're going to crack down on these protests, because once they put this Islamophobia law in, they'll have the police there arresting you one by one for saying and agreeing with breaching this new Islamophobia law. Now, the real thing here is that people have to organize like the left have done. The left have got very, very good at getting around the law, and they've got leaflets out there. You shouldn't say this, you shouldn't wear that, you should be careful. The right need to do the same, and the silent majority now need to do the same. We've got to learn on how they have successfully infiltrated our country and use their same tactics against them if we want to be successful. But I really do hope more people get out there, peacefully protest. Just protest. You are allowed legally to say that you don't want more mass immigration into this country. They cannot lock you up for chanting that. Let me tell the audience who are listening today, you cannot be locked up under the current law for doing so. Now, whether they'll change those laws, I don't know. I suspect they will, Dan. But while you can, use your voice, because the more people that use it now, the less likely these draconian laws will be. And let's not forget, Keir Starmer is the most unpopular incoming prime minister and government in history. So they have to be very, very careful if they want to win in the next 5 years. They really, really do. So please use your voice.
This is a one-term government. That I have no doubt about. Look, do you know what's been helping get me through these crazy times? Because it is tough. Is comedy. And sometimes laughing at the absurdity of these situations. And no comedian has got it more spot on than the brilliant Andrew Lawrence. I've played him a few times since starting Outspoken. And over the weekend, he decided to get into the mould of that horrid, cretinous bloke, James O'Brien from LBC. Watch this.
Hello and good morning. Well, as good as it can be now that Brexit's ruined everything, I suppose. Now, in a few minutes, I'll open the phone lines to some far-right bigots, give them 30 seconds to dig a hole for themselves, call them a racist, then cut them off. I mean, you know, what is wrong with these people? I'm not exaggerating when I say that I'm absolutely sick to death of it. It feels like they're everywhere, the far-right bigots. It's enough that you have to put up with them during the day. But I don't know about you, I go to bed at night and they're even haunting my dreams. These are the sorts of people we're dealing with. I caught my neighbour putting up a St George cross in his window last month during the Euros. Appalling.
But it just got better.
And I'll tell you what, Keir Starmer's onto you. He's got the police looking at your social media, looking at your online activity, and they'll be knocking on your door, they'll be making arrests, and they'll be putting you in prison. And that's exactly where you belong. I hope you rot, quite frankly. If they have to release a few sex offenders or violent criminals to create space for you, then so be it. Because you know what? Hate won't win. It never does. In medieval times, people like you would have been tied to the back of a horse and cart by your ankles and dragged over cobbled streets until you'd broken every bone in your body, and rightly so. Prison is too good for you absolute vermin, white working class dregs of humanity. And I'll tell you something else, maybe it's you who should be deported, because what are you contributing? That's right, nothing. Nothing, you scum. Thanks for listening. And I'll
I get that a lot. I get that a lot from the Be Kind left. But look, we also have to take victories when we get them. And so I wanted to talk about the case today of the Christian charity volunteer who has received a £13,000 payout and apology from the police after she claimed her arrest for praying silently outside an abortion clinic was unjust and breached her human rights. So this has been hailed as a major victory for free speech. It was Isabel Vaughan-Spruce who issued the claim against West Midlands Police. And I hope, Suzanne, this just makes the police and the authorities just think a little bit. We do have rights in this country, as hard as it is to believe at the moment.
In my experience, sometimes even the police don't know what those rights are. I think back, for instance, to COVID lockdowns. The police were arresting people for doing things that were perfectly legal, for going for a walk, for sitting on a bench, because even the police didn't understand the difference between what was advice and what was actually an offence under that absolutely chaotic COVID legislation. I've spoken to policemen regarding the Palestine marches that have been plaguing London every Saturday for months now. And they don't seem to realise even that Palestine is not recognised as a state in this country. And they certainly don't get the idea that these people might be surreptitiously supporting Hamas. They're much prepared to give them the benefit of the doubt. So I have to say, Dan, I don't have as much faith as you're hoping that I perhaps should have in the police at this particular time.
No,
but this case about the abortion clinic, I mean, that poor woman has been through years of hell to get to this position. And frankly, £13,000 isn't enough for what she's been through.
Totally.
And
I don't think she did this for the money.
Saying a prayer, it's awful.
Yeah,
and I'm pro-abortion, but
I don't think she did it for the money. I think she did it to make a point. But Alex, this is what Isabel Vaughan-Spruce had to say. She said, silent prayer is not a crime. Nobody should be arrested merely for the thoughts they have in their heads. Yet this happened to me twice at the hands of the West Midlands Police, who explicitly told me that prayer is an offence. And then I guess this comes to the wider theme of today's show. There is no place, she says, for Orwell's thought police in 21st century Britain. She's right, isn't she?
She's absolutely spot on. I mean, Orwell wrote that book as a warning, not a handbook to be copied by some tyrannical government. Let's not forget that. Well, I'm so happy she got victory, because we needed a win at this point in time. And I hope it will make the Stasi, the communist diktats and the civil service and the police think twice before they arrest somebody for using their freedom to express themselves, their freedom of prayer, their freedom of speech. But I do wonder, Dan, I really do wonder, had this been someone of Muslim faith praying outside that clinic, whether they would have had the same treatment as her, and whether the Be Kind left would have come out and said racist police, Islamophobic police, and you would have had it very, very quickly chucked out of court and brushed under the carpet. Without any doubt, right?
There is no
Alex, they
way.
wouldn't have dared arrest somebody. Can you imagine the police dragging away someone who's on their knees praying? They wouldn't have done it. They just wouldn't have done it.
No, this is again, it's another example of the two-tier law, and it comes to religion too. And I actually want to show you another example of this. And let me be clear before I do play you this video. I am not advocating for Chris Packham to be arrested myself. But how on earth are lefty nutters allowed to say things like this?
Here is banking with Barclays, and I suggest you stick your head in a bucket of fuel and set fire to it, because you're burning our planet down, and it's time to put this stuff behind us.
So, Suzanne, so much violent language from the left that we never see criminalised. And I'll stress again, I don't think it should be, but you get the point, don't you?
I do. I mean, what Chris Packham said, I'm sure he thought he was being funny, and most people recognise that he was being funny. What he's basically advocating, if you want to take it to its logical extreme, as you would do with the 54-year-old Julie Sweeney, who made a statement, he's advocating suicide, self-harm. It's wrong. You want to take these things literally. It's wrong. Like you, Dan, I don't think he should be locked up for it. I think what he said was completely stupid. I think the whole net zero policy agenda is grossly misguided and is going to leave Britain very cold and very poor. And I think it needs a radical rethink. Chris Packham is entitled to his opinion. But yeah, it was nasty. It was violent. And as I say, if you were treating it in the same way as you treat some other statements, I'm thinking also, like Miriam Margolis saying that Farage should be. What did she say about him? And then it was Joe Brand said.
Oh, Joe Brand said that she should have the
battery
shake.
Acid
and Miriam Margolis said that Boris Johnson, didn't she say the nurses should have left him to die or something like that?
Yes,
it was
she
something
did.
about Boris and COVID, which was vile. And this is the problem, isn't it?
These are offensive statements, but not criminal in my view.
No, exactly. But Alex, the problem is, and this is why I just wish the left were careful. You are opening the door up to this. You're nastier than the right. You say more revolting things on a daily basis. Be very careful about what you're opening up our society to when you start criminalising speech.
Quite, Dan. And it's the actual act of it going into law and then being prosecuted and put into prison, because I've said this so many times online. I've said, be warned, as soon as you activate these laws and you give the police these powers and you give the courts these powers, one day a government that you don't like and doesn't politically favour your opinion will come in and weaponize it against you. And that should terrify everybody on the left and on the right. And that, for me, is the scariest thing, because you could get a very radical government in that says, you know what, any lefty that talks about net zero, prison. Anyone that calls a trans man a woman or whatever it is, prison, right? That's where this could go. And it's not, and again, Orwell made that book as a warning to this is what it logically leads to. It leads to more radical laws. Be warned, do not do it. I just can't believe it.
I've been listening to the 1984 audiobook lately.
It's great. It's great.
Just as a little reminder, and yeah, it's amazing.
Everybody should go read it or listen to it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please do subscribe if you want lots more clips and interviews like that. Plus, if you want to watch our totally uncensored after show, then visit www.outspoken.live.